Welcome to the last recast of 2018. Hey guys, PIEGUYRULZ here, and I am joined by my guest, 1BDI Monsters.
Hey, what's up?
Monsters, we've been doing this for 21 weeks.
That amazes me.
Our podcast can get a, well, no, If weeks were years, our podcast could get a driver's license. Our podcast probably shouldn't get a driver's license if it's not a year old.
Right.
But our baby podcast could probably drive a sandwich.
Oh, for sure.
You know, I was thinking about it, and I'm like, wow, 21 episodes. That means that we've been doing it for half a year, because 52 is the weeks in a year. And
right.
It took me that's not right. It took me a long time to be like, no, that would be 26 weeks, smart guy.
Yeah. It's close though.
Yeah. I mean, it's close.
Month.
It's close because I was thinking about that. I'm like, how does that work? Is this half a year? No, it's not. But almost half a year. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So today we have a bit of a weird episode for you. I know we had a weird episode last week. We had an unexpected guest, an unexpected guest not being there. We talked about a video game for a very long period of time and Star Wars. We talked about 3 episodes, one of which wasn't really a Christmas episode. It was a weird episode. I think it turned out well. Also almost 3 hours long.
Yeah, pretty long.
But it was definitely unusual. This episode's going to be a little unusual too. It's just me and Monsters this time, so it should be definitely short. Well, it will be shorter if we go for 3 hours. Monsters, I don't know what we're doing.
We'll be cooking up some spicy debates.
We're like reciting every line in both these Futurama episodes.
Right.
No, but we'll definitely be shorter. But it's gonna be weird. But in 2019, we'll definitely be kind of back on track with some more regular episodes where we do talk about news and we answer questions and we plan our trivia out pretty well. But we're still in holiday mode, so excuse us if we're a little short and a little sweet this week. Monsters, how was your holiday?
It was pretty good. It was laid back. This was my first time. So we have like a family get together, and
Okay.
Usually it's the adults. I mean, I'm an adult, so but like usually it's like the aunts and the uncles and the grandparents and the parents that bring over the food and put it on the table and stuff. But this is my first year contributing. I made sautéed peppers and I brought that, and it seemed to be a hit. People brought it home for leftovers, and I'm a chef now apparently.
Oh, that's really nice, dude.
Yeah.
Where do you sit in the family? Like, are you one of the older ones of like your generation, or?
Well, yeah, I'm the oldest sibling. I'm also the oldest grandchild. And
There you go.
It's at my grandparents' house. So, I mean, I sit in the same spot every year, but usually there's people in and out just because, family, different places to be.
Right, people die and people get born.
Yeah.
What?
Especially die. No.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. I thought you
Yeah.
meant just, every year there's new people, different people. Some people die, and I was trying to make a joke, but let's push past it.
I get it. Well, anywho,
I can't wait for this clip to end up somewhere else on the internet. Like, PIEGUYRULZ wishes death upon Monsters' family.
I know.
Catch that on Keemstar next week.
Hashtag drama alert. No.
Oh gosh.
So how was your Christmas?
Perry the Platypus.
How was your Christmas, PIEGUYRULZ? that was
God.
awful. I botched that.
My Christmas was very, very nice. Very pleasant. My heat went out a few days before Christmas. But luckily we had some good not mechanics. What do you call them? Plumbers? No, they're not plumbers. They're electricians.
Electricians, yeah.
Yeah. Electricians that came out and were able to get it running, and then I'm gonna need a new one, but they got me a good deal on it. So that was a scare, because when something bad like that happens really close to Christmas, it's always kind of like a crapshoot on whether or not you're gonna be able to book someone, because Christmas Day is one day that people aren't working, and it's the end of the year, so like a lot of people are getting stuff fixed up because the holidays, like family's gonna come over, so it's always kind of like a little nervous as to whether or not you're gonna get that fixed.
Right.
But got it fixed, and I had a good holiday. Got some cool stuff. I mostly asked for wall decorations to decorate my apartment, and they look pretty dang sweet. I got a nice Rocco. They're not posters, because like I'm like, all right, I'm 25. Like, there's nothing wrong with posters. Posters are cool, but I want something a little fancier and a little like less easily wrinkled and whatever, something like nice and classy. So I got it from Think Geek, this Rocco like wall art piece. I got a Mario Bros one, and I got a Splatoon one and a Mario World one, and I got a Reptar and a Hey Arnold. Like, I got, I asked my family for just basically everything from Think Geek, and I got it.
Nice.
Yep.
Cool.
All right, so this week on the recast, we also have 2 Futurama episodes to talk about. One from the very beginning of the show, one from the very end of the show, both that have portions that take place in 1999. And that's about all we got. There's trivia, too. Yeah. No news, and we're going to skip the question this week as well for time. So, Monsters, what did you watch over this holiday period? Tell me it's something incredibly festive.
Oh, certainly. I did want to watch Home Alone. That actually is a semi-Christmas movie that I really enjoy, but I didn't get around to it. I hoped it would be on TV, but it was on. I found that the only channel it was on was Stars, which I don't have. Oh. So a big rip to that. But what I did watch is on Netflix there was a documentary called The Pixar Story, and it's basically just it talks about John Lasseter and kind of Disney animation and and kind of like the development of computer graphics and technology, and how Disney kind of bought into that, and just kind of the how Pixar came to be what we know it as today. Even though the documentary was released in, I think, 2007 or 8, so about basically around the time that this documentary came out, the latest Pixar film was like Ratatouille.
So Pixar was still on top of its game.
And I was gonna say, because this was also like right after Michael Eisner got kicked out, Bob Iger became the CEO of Disney. And I think at this point, recently, as of the production of this documentary, Disney had just purchased Pixar. Which is weird, because in the documentary they have clips from like Bob Iger, and he's like, I think what made Pixar really like us is we're very hands off. We'll let them keep their creative freedom, and we respect the artistry. And there was another guy in there saying like, we have so many authentic, fresh ideas. I think that's what makes us unique. And it's kind of different because it totally
that's awkward.
Yeah. It paints a totally different picture of what I envision of Disney and Pixar's relationship today, because what I think of now is like Disney plasters their name all over Pixar's stuff. Basically, since Pixar or Toy Story 3, they've had numerous sequels, a lot of flops like Cars 2.
Good Dinosaur.
And by flops, I mean not box office flops, just like, critical flops, which... By the way, in the documentary, they just talk about how they have hit after hit after hit. Like, really, Toy Story 2, Bug's Life, the first Toy Story, Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, The Incredibles,
Yeah. Well, they did. I mean, I don't. I've talked to death about Pixar, but
right.
Yeah, no, that is very interesting to see a time capsule at that point, because they, in 2006 they were like on top of the world. They hadn't had a movie that wasn't beloved, like what their least beloved movie at that point was like A Bug's Life, and that's that still has some praise to it, right? And that's only mainly just because it was like their second film. I mean,
this is also pre-scandal John Lasseter, which again paints a different picture of Pixar than today, because they literally, like, he is.
Oh God! I mean, tell me they don't show him hugging people.
Maybe.
They do that on. There was one of the Studio Ghibli Disney Blu-ray releases. There's one where he meets Miyazaki, and he gives Miyazaki a very long, very uncomfortable hug.
Oh.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I don't want to say. I mean, I guess this documentary kind of has a narrative, but I will say he basically is kind of the protagonist of this, because it literally like tells his story from childhood and going to college at CalArts, all the way up until being like the chief creative officer of Disney, and they really make him out to be a hero. And there's so many different clips of like all these satisfied Pixar employees being like, yeah, John's the man, like he's the best, he's the one that inspired us, he's the one that's the figurehead, and he leads our company. And yeah, so it's very interesting.
You know, people, it sucks. People, you know, they're on top of the world. They do great things, and they're talented, and they're great. And then they, for some reason, they feel the need to do that. And then, you know, rightly so. Like I don't want to get into a huge debate or whatever, but you know, it definitely leaves a dark mark. Whether you're in the camp of separate the art for the artist, you're in the camp of I don't want to support someone like that, so I'm never watching that again. Regardless of the camp you're in, I think we can all agree that it is, you know, it paints this air of uncomfortability, and it's unfortunate because it doesn't have to be like that. People don't have to abuse their power and be awful.
Yeah. So I watched that, and also at a different family gathering I had on Christmas Eve, there was a TV on in the background because there were some kids there, and Nickelodeon was on.
Oh.
And by the time I started watching, it was just the end of It's a SpongeBob Christmas.
I never heard of it.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was like, turn this off immediately.
Yeah, no. you probably were. Put on a documentary.
Yeah. Put on some art house stuff.
Put on the behind the scenes making of SpongeBob Christmas.
I know. The kids will love it. But so after the commercial break, after that episode ended, I was surprised. You know, I thought it would have been something a bit more Christmassy since it was the night of Christmas Eve. But they showed the season 1 episode of SpongeBob, Sleepy Time, which ironically has some parallels with one of the episodes we'll be talking about today.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, for those of you that don't remember the episode, it's basically where SpongeBob is sleeping, and he, I guess in this metaphysical way, visits other people's dreams and essentially terrorizes them while they're trying to have a good dream.
Yeah.
I don't really know what you think of this episode.
I think I gave it a good. I don't find it to be like one of the all-time greats or anything, but it's definitely interesting. It's one of the more I guess it's one of the more set-piecey SpongeBob episodes. You could say that. Because it's like I can't say I really remember too much about individual jokes, but I remember Gary talking and you know, saying, what is it? Mind your wandering eye, you something invertebrate, I believe.
Yeah.
You know, I remember Patrick on the little seahorse thing.
On the horsey, yeah.
Yep. I remember SpongeBob being Squidward's clarinet.
Yeah.
You know, and then Mr. Krabs catching
beautiful.
the dollar. Yeah. So it's an all right episode.
Yeah. I think a lot of it's cool to kind of get into each character's heads. I think some of the dreams are a bit more inventive than others, but I do find it weird at the end where it's like, I obviously, you know, it's a cartoon, but it's like, SpongeBob, get out of our dream. It's like,
and everyone's just there.
Like, yeah, they just go to his house to confront him about it.
Home invasion's cool, but dream invasion, no.
Yeah. He's like, guys, I have no idea what you're talking about. And they're like, what?
I mean, also, let's be real. If that happened to you, would you have assumed that you just popped into other people's dreams, or would you assume that you're dreaming that you did that?
Yeah, no. If you popped into my dream, I'd hop on and be like, "What are you doing?"
Hop on a microphone and do a live dream episode of the recast.
Yeah, it's happened. No.
Whoa. Fun fact about Sleepy Time: Patrick's dream is a part of the last episode or the last level of Battle for Bikini Bottom.
Yeah, I mean, I have that game. I just I never got that far.
It's the last part of it, but before the final boss. So it's I don't want to spoil it, but what you have to do to get the golden spatula is it's a doozy.
I have that game and the SpongeBob movie for the GameCube, and I couldn't beat either of them.
You should try doing the ring missions.
Oh, on the SpongeBob movie?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen gameplay.
Oh, really? have
Yeah.
you ever lived gameplay?
I mean, well, now that I'm not a young child, I can probably, you know,
Um.
make it to those levels.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, listen, it's a challenge for not young children. All right. It was 2 years ago. Or 1 year ago, no, 2 years ago, I think. There's a 2 hour cut of me like going insane trying to do the One Ring level because it's so stupid. It's in first person view, so you can't, and the rings don't appear until you go through the one. So the next ring could be at like a 90-degree angle, and you have to pinpoint, know that it's there, and turn immediately. And if you hit anything or miss any ring, it's over. Also, you go in a loop around this big garbage pit, and then you go to another section of the map where you go in a loop. So you can't remember whether you are on the first loop or the second loop where you're going to be making a turn or not. It's stupid.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. All right, well.
So what did you watch?
So I watched children's card games. I watched more Yu-Gi-Oh. Listen.
Nice.
All right. Well, because I watched the movie and I was like, I'll watch the show. I never saw the last season, and it's weird because did I talk about season 5 on the show? I know I talked about the movie.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Maybe.
Well, I've gotten further in season 5. It begins with another tournament, which is like Yu-Gi-Oh. Part of the problem is just that it's card games, so you're not like the characters aren't actually doing anything other than drawing the lucky card that they need and playing it immediately. Like, you could argue that there's some strategy in like the order in which they play their cards, but generally speaking, all of these like genius strategies that our hero comes up with are just him top decking. Like, he's not, I mean, maybe good deck building you could argue, but it's just kind of but basically the thing about the show, if you've never really seen it or you've never really been into it, is that it's kind of like pro wrestling in that like what actually happens in the battle doesn't really matter. Like, who wins, who loses, it's just whatever the narrative feels like. Like, it's not, the characters don't earn it or whatever. But it's a lot about the personality. It's a lot about like seeing the monsters, battle each other, even though what they do is pretty defined. It's just kind of like about the way they dress it up more so than it is about the story itself or what actually happens. And I found some enjoyment out of that. But by the end of the tournament arc, I got really sick of it because it is basically just kind of like every time they go into a duel, for the most part, it's just like you zone out because it's the same stuff happening every time. They kind of did something interesting where they had the final boss of that part of the season hacked into the computers that is running these card games and altered a card to make it like unbeatable. So the character had to basically play around the fact that it was unbeatable, and it was interesting. It was an interesting twist. I liked it. But then after that, they put the Yu-Gi-Oh! Capsule Monsters spin-off as a part of Season 5, which is basically, instead of cards, they have like capsules of actual monsters. And I feel like that fixed a lot of the issues because no longer was it... I mean, it was basically... It's a ripoff of Pokemon. Like 100%. No, I mean, I'm not trying to say this is original or great, but I feel like that kind of fixed some of the problems with Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it's no longer like this monster has X attack points, this monster has this, and I'm drawing this card that automatically destroys that monster because of whatever random thing I'm saying. It's now like actual battling where the monsters can do just whatever the person tells them to do. They're not defined. So like that was all right. Got really kind of tedious towards the end because it's like it like dragged on and on. And then after that is the last arc of the show, which I was actually genuinely blown away by. I'm about halfway in, but the concept is that do you know anything about Yu-Gi-Oh?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Have you seen season 5?
Well, what I can tell you is
Yeah.
I've seen some of the original.
Were you a
don't
GX
remember
kid?
too much. I've seen but I do remember more of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, which is like kind of like a spin-off, I think.
Yep. That one aired a lot more on Cartoon Network. The original Yu-Gi-Oh! Aired mostly on Kids WB.
Right.
But basically, so like the whole series, they go on about how like these cards they're inspired by actual demons that existed in ancient Egypt and blah, 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 blah. Well, finally, they basically go to ancient Egypt through Millennium Puzzle nonsense. But like it's actually like they kind of made it really cool because they're not playing trading cards. They're just monsters that are in like the souls of people who commit crimes, and the people with the Millennium items extract these monsters and seal them away into these giant stone slabs, and then when they need to like defend their kingdom, they draw upon the power of these monsters to do actual battle. And on top of that, most of it isn't even battling. Most of it is the story of the Pharaoh and who he was and how he lost his memories and what Bakura's been doing for 4.5 seasons on this show, where he's just been lurking around doing whatever.
Right.
It explains his backstory and what he's been up to, and Yugi and the gang go there, but they can't be seen or touched by anyone but the Pharaoh and a few other people. Like, it's interesting. Like, I'm not gonna say it's great because it still has like a lot of the same trappings of just like tropes and cliches and like forced comedy moments that are like really childish and dumb. But I feel like a lot of my kind of problems and complaints with just like the card battling in general are fixed in it, and I feel like it is a really sweet way for the show to send itself off for the first series. And if you haven't checked it out, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is on both Hulu and Netflix, so you got no excuse.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we still haven't talked about Spider-Man.
I feel. Oh yes. And we. Kuro. He's feeling a little better, but we haven't really spoken to him, and we don't want to put too much pressure on him to be like on next week or whatever. But he wanted to talk about the movie, and Shadow wanted to talk about the movie, and also everyone wants to talk about the movie. So I don't know, maybe we'll wait and we'll just talk about it when it comes out on Blu-ray, and we'll have like 20 guests on, and we'll just talk about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and we'll compare it to something really ridiculous and stupid. We'll compare it to like the Clone Wars saga,
like any other Spider-Man movie, which is automatically inferior.
That's true. It's this movie is the superior Spider-Man. Wink.
Yes.
Because that's the name. That was the name of the Spider-Man book for a while.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Peter Parker died, and then Doc Ock inhabited Peter Parker's body and he wanted to be a better Spider-Man, so he became the superior Listen, comic books are weird. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get into it, but I mean, Spider-Verse plays on a lot of that.
Yeah. Well, Spider-Verse, I have some controversial opinions about.
Okay.
I don't actually. I just want to make sure people tune in. Well, if we just say we'll talk about Spider-Verse like next week every week, maybe we'll just get more people to listen to the podcast.
Yeah. It's like the majority of the recast listeners that accumulate they don't care about the hour and a half we talk about a certain show. It's like they just want to hear us talk about Spider-Man. We
put timestamps in the description. Like there's always a timestamp of like we talk about Into the Spider-Verse, but every time you click it, it's just us saying we're not talking about it this week. That's next week. Oh man,
it's like at the same timestamp every week, so we make sure like an hour into recording
the guest is in the middle of saying something and we interrupt them, like, I'm gonna let you finish, but we gotta announce that we're talking about Spider-Verse next week. All right, well, speaking of next week we are going to do something that was suggested to us by someone on our Discord server named Monsters
Pixar Princess, who very aptly chose for us to talk about A Bug's Life and Ants. Ants. They're not bees, but ants. Listen, I'm the last one to complain about an unnecessary Z at the end of a title, but I'm just saying. Right.
But yeah,
good comparison. They're both from the late 90s. They're both rivalry between Pixar and DreamWorks,
and there is a story behind it too. I don't actually recall it all offhand. I'll have to do a little research, but I do remember.
I know it's like so there was a guy that used to work at Disney named Jeffrey
hang on, we'll talk. No, you don't need to give the history of DreamWorks. Okay. No, hang on. We'll talk about it next week. And
I'll spew my documentarian knowledge later on.
Once upon a time, there was a man named Walt Disney. Oh goodness. I guess you'll have some inside information because you watched the Pixar documentary.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so stay tuned for that.
Yep. Next week we'll also have some announcements for the show. We have some changes, all good changes that we're going to talk about next week, including like what the replacement for us telling you the stuff we're talking about in 2 weeks is. And just some other format shifts. I think it's all good news. We're gonna dedicate our podcast exclusively to Teen Titans Go.
Yes.
You know, so
very, very proud executive decision.
Yep, it's gonna be every episode of Teen Titans Go reviewed, but we spend a 2-hour-long podcast every week just dissecting one episode.
Yeah.
At least 20% of the words used are sucks
And pizza.
and waffles.
Yeah. And tofu.
Goodness. All right. Not in that show. Okay, so we are on to our feature presentation. I left it. We wanted to do Futurama because it made sense because it's about New Year's, and I left the ball in Monsters' court to pick which episodes. Obviously, we were going to do the pilot as one of them, but you chose Game of Tones.
Yes.
Which, I mean, I guess we'll get to that when we get to that.
Right.
But to start off, we have Space Pilot 2000. 3000?
3000.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense to me.
Or as I called it, Mystery Pilot 3000.
Oh goodness. That's the name of our other podcast where we just pick a random pilot every week and talk about it.
Yeah.
Monsters, that's actually not a bad idea. You might want to write that.
It's not. No,
All
it's
right.
not.
All right. Because you want like 4 hours of us talking to you each week, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Space Pilot 3000 is about a guy named Fry who lives in the year 1999. Ooh. And he's kind of a burnout. He's a pizza delivery boy, doesn't have a car. His girlfriend is cheating on him. His life is just not great. And he gets a pizza delivery to go up to a cryogenics lab, and when he gets there, he quote unquote accidentally gets frozen in one of the chambers and wakes up in the year 3000. From there, he's assigned a career chip and is on the run because he doesn't want to be a delivery person in the future as well. Shenanigans happen, and he ends up a delivery person in the future.
Yes.
Man, this has got to be one of the best episodes of the series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love this episode. It's so good.
You could tell that they spent a lot of time developing this. This wasn't, lots of pilots happen and they're like rough versions of what the show is like. And to be fair, there are certain creative decisions made in this that are like retconned, like the career chip being the big one. But in terms of like comedy, in terms of the wit, in terms of the character, like in terms of just like the story and the scope of like what they want to do with this show, it's all in there from the start.
Mm-hmm. And it's crazy. And you know, I mean, I wasn't really around when the show premiered.
You weren't born yet.
No, I was born. I just wasn't watching adult animation.
Right.
But I, you know, I'm kind of curious because, you know, it's like, oh, The Simpsons, probably the most popular animated show on TV right now. I wonder what could come next from the creator. And it's this, which is quite dissimilar, I'd say.
Well, Monsters, you know that feeling because we had that feeling like 2 months ago when we talked about disenchantment.
Mint. Yeah.
Mint. Disillusion. I don't know. But yeah, you can only imagine. I mean, this was 99, so The Simpsons had been running for like about 10 years. And that's like the golden era of this. Like, we're not talking about like, yeah, I just joke that we just experienced that because of the Netflix show Groening did. But like, you know, he did that after there's been like tons and tons of not great Simpsons. This was when The Simpsons was at its peak. So yeah, I can only imagine like the level of hype and the level of intrigue. And I mean, in some ways the jokes are similar, some of them, like Fry getting squashed with the door. Like that's like a Simpsons joke. Like that they would do that. You know, the jokes like 1BDI is Layla's her code name, and it's like a singular BDI that she has.
Yeah.
You know, but in other cases it doesn't. It feels so drastically different, and it does set you up on a much more story driven, a much more fantastical, insane journey, because a lot of attention in The Simpsons was put into being more grounded. I know that's kind of like ridiculous to say now, but
Right.
it was more grounded for its time, and at the very least, it operated on exaggerated reality and not outright like just fantasy.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's quite funny too how the Futurama can how Futurama can have such accurate social commentary despite taking place like I mean obviously there's so many parallels between Futurama in the year 3000 and our current state of being
we're in the year
but
3000 now. Whoa, dude, how long have we been doing the recast? I thought we
yeah.
yeah.
But no, it is quite crazy because The Simpsons literally like as the show goes on, they continue to pick apart different parts of our current society, and Futurama's in the future, and it's so crazy and out there, but they still manage to do it so well.
Well, that's the kind of the bizarre thing is that not in the episode we're talking about next, but in a lot of the Comedy Central era episodes, or a decent amount of them, they were bizarrely like they were really trying to be topical, which didn't make any sense because in being topical they ended up being dated, and the show is supposed to be set in the future. Whereas in this episode, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't feel like they're trying to make too much social commentary or whatever, or like sorry, not I want to restate this. It feels like the commentary that they do make, it is more universal, like the state of society and the state of being stuck in your job. That feels more universal than having Leela get a Boyle named Susan Boyle in an episode about iPhones and whatever.
Who's, by the way, no longer relevant.
No. Okay. If you know who Susan Boyle is, please tell me, because I don't. No. No. I think she's a singer.
Yeah, she was a singer that got popular on Britain's Got Talent.
Cool.
But most people probably wouldn't know that.
Yeah. But anyway, this episode doesn't feel dated. The only Leonard Nimoy's in it, which is like
and Dick Clark.
And who?
Dick Clark from the New Year's celebration.
Oh, right, Dick Clark. True. And both of those people have passed since 1999. But they're in it as like heads in jars, so even like it's not even it like it doesn't even feel like it doesn't make sense because it kind of does, I guess. But yeah, no, like that. Other than that, like nothing feels really dated about. I mean, I guess they say the suicide booth was invented in 2008, which takes on a different a different connotation after the year 2000, because it's like in 1999 it must have been like, whoa, like that's a joke about like, oh, soon upcoming we're gonna have this. But now it's just like it almost feels like, are they trying to say something about like Obama or something, like what happened in 2008, even though that's not, it's obvious, they just picked a random year. But no, other like it doesn't feel dated, which is
no, it doesn't.
It's about like almost 10 years old.
Yeah.
So, kudos to that. I wish it was in widescreen, but
that would be nice.
Yeah. But what can you do? It's digitally inked. One of the earlier shows to be digitally inked.
A little bit of CG.
Yeah, a little bit of CG. That was I mean, the people. So the people behind the show, they're smart people. Like
Yes.
David Cohen has some
David
sort of
X. Cohen.
It's actually David S. Cohen. He changed it for the show just to be funny, because it's like futuristic. No, he has like a degree in something, but like a lot of the writers are genuinely smart.
Ken Keeler.
Yeah, there's been people that have like they made up an equation or something for the show. I'm not smart enough to know this stuff. They made up 2 different languages for the show. Like, they're smart people, and it really does kind of show through in the writing.
I do want to say though, I mean, because the show is so smart, I did want to point out something that I noticed. The show continually points back to the fact that Fry was frozen, and in the year 1999. And sent 1,000 years into the future. But technically, wasn't Fry frozen a few seconds into the year 2000? because there's the countdown. They say the number 1, and then it's not until like 3 or 4 or 5 seconds afterwards where he trips into the cryogenic chamber.
Leap years and extra seconds in every year, so
technically, yeah.
Well,
because then he ends up in 2000 or 2999.
Yes.
So
what bothers me is more just the fact that everyone is apparently counting down New Year's at the same time.
Yeah.
I know it's just like artistic license just so they can kind of have that like global
even though
thing.
in like China and India it'd be before us.
Yeah, it's like, oh great, it's 1 a.m.
Maybe
New
not
Year
India,
or whatever. Or I guess it'd be like 5, be like, hey, let's get up and go to work.
Right.
But yeah, and like this episode is so funny. Like I wrote down, so like the lightsaber batons where you think it's futuristic with lightsabers, but they're just batons that just they're lightsabers inexplicably. They could have.
Well, they also say like we're going full like 2100s on you guys or something, which is like old for them.
Yeah. When Leela tells him the yeardies, he's like, "Oh my god, I'm 1,000,000 years in the future." He's not. He's 1,000. That's a joke. He says that he's beginning to suspect his girlfriend might be cheating on him. The fact that Bender chooses to rip off the suicide machine with his fake coin when like he's intending to commit suicide, so there's no point in having his money. It's also great when he's like, "You're full of crap, Fry," and then he gets shocked, and then he turns around and he's like, "You make a persuasive argument, Fry." Bender putting his arms back on after the commercial break, and Fry commenting, "I don't know how you did that." Leela's great line about what happens if I don't do the job? They fire you out of a cannon into the sun. Like, oh my god, Bender pulling out the 3 beers and drinking them all. Like, I could keep listing, but like there's so many just solid jokes in this episode. There's no bad jokes. There's some that aren't really funny, like aren't greatly funny, but I wouldn't say there's any that made me like groan or maybe be like, oh.
Yeah.
There's no Susan
ones
Boyle
I listed off
jokes.
were the ones I listed off where Fry says, "My parents, my coworkers, my girlfriend, I'm never gonna see them again." Woohoo! and then when he approaches Farnsworth, and I think maybe it was when he was talking to Leela about it, but they said that Farnsworth is his or no, it was with Farnsworth, and he was like, "I guess you're my great goes on for however many nephew." And then Fry goes, "That's great." And then also, this isn't even a joke really, but when Mr. Panucci says, "Hey Fry, pizza going out. Come on."
I know, I love it. I'm a sucker for Nope, don't want to say it like that. I appreciate the joke of what was written on the thing that Fry had to deliver pizza to.
Yes.
They never address it in the show, but presumably, or they might in one episode, but presumably Nibbler just inexplicably chose to do that. He didn't have to. It could have been a delivery for like, Bill Parmesan or whatever.
Yes.
And it also relies on Fry being stupid, because if he specifically chose the prank one, and if Fry wasn't stupid, he might not have delivered the pizza and he might never have gotten frozen.
Right. Yep. Pizza for
icy wiener. I like the way he says it too. It's just like he just like it
always happens.
Also, don't forget Professor Farnsworth's drawer where he keeps various lengths of wire, assorted lengths of wire. Sorry.
Next to an illustrious spaceship.
Yes, that I designed. And he wants to tell him about this wires. Oh, they get so much mileage out of Farnsworth in the show. Oh my goodness. And then just the fact that Fry is all excited to be a delivery boy at the end is so funny.
Yeah.
So that's the jokes. I mean, but story-wise, it's so efficient because it sets up Fry's life in 1999, including his girlfriend, his job, the fact that he's a loser. It foreshadows Nibbler by showing the shadow, has him frozen, introduces us to this fantastical setting, introduces us to Bender, Leela, Farnsworth, the Planet Express ship, the tone of the show, the types of jokes that it tells. It introduces us to all this stuff in 22 minutes. The only thing it doesn't do, and it saves it for the next episode, is it doesn't introduce us to the other the other main characters. It's an episode without Zoidberg, so that is sad, I will say.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe they didn't develop those characters when they were like initially coming up with the show or something, or they were still working on them when they were writing this episode. I mean, I don't know. You could have had a very brief introduction of them, like they're just hanging around Planet Express,
right?
Because I think they're kind of noticeably absent. Because most
it
episodes
does feel a little empty.
Yeah, most episodes have like at least two out of three, at least, if not all three.
Yeah. When I think of Futurama, it's always, the group hanging out or something, and Professor Farnsworth walking in and saying, "Good news, everyone."
Yeah, I mean, it really is like it does go on to be basically an ensemble show. Well, there's an early, I think it's a. I think it's a text gag at the beginning of the episode where it's like Friends but in outer space or something, or like Friends but with a with a brain-eating slug or something.
Right.
Because I mean it kind of is like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think? I want to talk to you about this. What do you think about the career chip retcon? You know what I'm talking about?
Not entirely.
Oh, okay. So the entire the main driving plot, aside from like Fry getting frozen or whatever, is that in the future you have to have a career chip. If you don't have a career chip, you're basically dead, or you're a fugitive. However, the series goes on and like they quit at one point. There's another point at which they like all of them have various other jobs, especially Bender. Bender gets just random jobs. And career chips are not involved in any way. They're not like hunted down by the law when they get fired or they quit. And other people seem to be able to freely move about. So I mean, you could argue that like in universe, like that there was a bill passed that they don't do that anymore or something. But it seemed like such a very integral part to the first episode, and then it really is dropped. Like they do one or two jokes about it. Going forward, but it is basically just dropped. It's like Fry and Bender. The fact that Bender sleeps in the closet or in this small closet space, that was another early thing that was completely dropped, where he just has a bedroom later. I mean, like I don't think the show like necessarily strictly needed it, but I do feel like for how good and efficient at world building this episode is, it does feel a little weird that they have this one element that they just decided to drop for some reason. But of all things to drop, I don't think it's the worst. Also, Bender steals a ring is the worst thing he does in this episode. Bender has I've determined Bender and Stewie Griffin have like the inverse journey across their shows, where Stewie got like less and less evil, allegedly. I don't watch much Family Guy, but he got less and less evil. Whereas Bender, like by the end of the show, he's just evil. Like it's like the third to last episode of the show or something, where he's like in a feud with like an adorable little girl, and he like breaks her kneecaps, or like he does something really awful. And I will be honest, I kind of like more ineffectual Bender. I like petty larceny Bender more than I like straight up evil Bender personally.
Yeah.
Especially because it's not expected in this episode, because he's not established as even being like a lowlife. Like he he drinks.
I mean, his first line is iconic, and I guess sets up the character pretty well.
That's true. Something about shiny and metal and a word.
Yeah.
That's true. He's a rude robot. But I guess that's kind of what makes the ring stealing joke work too, because you don't really expect it. Like now Bender, it's like, yeah, you'd expect that. Like that's not unexpected. But Probulator. God. Gosh.
I am curious though, what happened to the other people in the cryogenic lab?
Well, actually, one of the other people is Fry's girlfriend. One of the other people is Lars, aka.
Oh, I remember Lars. Yeah.
I won't spoil that, I guess, if you haven't seen the series. But we actually know, and one of the other people is Bender hiding behind a frozen body. Most of those are from Bender's Big Score. But
Yes.
one of them is also from the Cryonic Woman, which would be about Fry's girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. Now you know. it's
Yep.
it's. I don't think they really foreshadowed it here, but that's eventually what like. Yeah, and I mean they don't really go on to explain like why this cryogenics lab is like cool with Fry just like being there.
Right.
Apparently, in real life, some people have tried out cryogenic labs.
Yeah, they exist.
Because like the theory is like the theory that potentially we could cure like bring someone back from being frozen and cure these debilitating diseases. It's theoretically like feasible, but the practicality is, and what happens to a lot of these places is they run out of funding and they can't afford to freeze these people anymore. And once they're not frozen, they're just disgusting human carcasses.
Yeah.
So there's your trivia for the day.
Yeah. I mean, I find it funny too that the cryogenics lab is like the only building that withstands, tons of invasions and destructions, and even withstands being, the old New York being built on top of.
Yeah, that's true. It's a tall building,
Yeah.
Well, it also, I mean, we'll get to it, but apparently things left on top of it can also be fine for 1,000 years.
Yes.
I'm trying to think. I mean, it is just like, and it also sets up the head in a jar thing.
Yep.
Like there's just so much that gets set up, and it just, I don't know. I'm in awe. I love this episode. I really do. I think I would genuinely say I think it's one of the best pilots out there.
I agree.
Like, and there's so many.
It sets up the series so well.
Yeah, and there's so many other like. It's hard to set up a series and be this funny. Like that's the thing. You can set up. There are pilots that do a really great job of setting up a series, but they typically have to forgo things like jokes or even like a good original story on its own, because like that's the thing. This is not just the story of how Fry came to the future. They have a story with career chips and being on the run and whatever. It could have just been Fry comes to the future and woo, here's all these future-y things. That could have been the episode, and it would have been fine to set things up. But the fact that they have great jokes, a good story, and good world building really kind of rounds everything out.
Right. And a lot of the time, expository stuff can be boring, but like, no, it feels like a journey, and a lot of it's so entertaining to watch.
And I mean, it really should be, considering this is the episode and the moment in the show that gets re-shown and we see other scenes of the most in the series. It happens, oh goodness, at least 4 or 5 other times. One last joke that we didn't mention was Fry jumping in the spaceship and being like, "I'll get us out of here," and he presses a bunch of buttons, and it's like, that's a trope. Like in other shows, characters will just be able to like fly spaceships or do like operate advanced alien technology apropos of nothing. Like, I love that. And then there's also like, there's so many, I talked about this with SpongeBob a lot about how there's layers, but like Futurama has them too. Like, you might not really get it, but like the joke is that like Layla has no depth perception because she has one eye, and yet she's a really good pilot. Like, like you might not pick up on that at first, but that's a good joke. That's a good observation in there. Another little piece of foreshadowing is contents of Space Wasp stomach, which is it's just a joke. It's a non sequitur in this episode about that's where the career chips came from. Should be joking that that's how Farnsworth's old crew died. Well, later we get an episode where they go back to the giant space wasps, and that's a real trip. Oh, that's a real trip. And then also we have a late episode where we meet the original crew. They were trapped inside a whale. So I know my Futurama trivia. Listen, I know. I'm a nerd. All right. Would you like to explain the second episode?
Sure. So there's basically a group of tones. It's do 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 do, and they basically, they come to Earth from this flying space mechanism, and they're kind of harming Earth. And Fry's basically he's like, I remember that, but I don't know exactly where. So Farnsworth proposes that, or he later finds out that that the recollection comes from December 31st, 1999, the day that Fry got frozen, his last day living in the past. So basically, what he does is he sets up this contraption where Fry dreams back to that day and relives it, so that he can go back and find the source of where those tones are coming from. And we eventually find out that it's because of Nibbler's chauffeur trying to find out where he parked his vehicle.
Can I take a stab at that, just like to be a little clearer to the audience?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a spaceship making these weird tones in outer space. It's like shaking the earth. No one knows how to stop it. Fry realizes that he's heard that somewhere before, and so they go inside of Fry's memory of 1999 to try to figure out where Fry heard that sound.
Yes.
Sorry, I just want to be clear to the audience. You did a good job. It's a good effort. No. So in my opinion, there's basically two parts to this episode. There's two sections, and one of it is the story about these tones, and the other is a story about how Fry really never got to be with his family ever again. And what's clever about this is that in the pilot, we mentioned it. There's a joke about Fry saying, "I never see my family or girlfriend or job again." Woohoo! But then later in that same episode, he does have a genuine moment where it really sets in, and it's one of those things where the writers kind of said that they, in commentaries and interviews, that they had to make Fry stupid because, like, if you weren't an idiot, the horrible realization of what happened would be like really kind of maddening. Like,
right.
The show works well because Fry isn't someone who really thinks about that sort of thing a lot, so it's not super depressing. And I mean, obviously his life wasn't great, but the first episode does kind of hint that there is something underlying about, like, yeah, man, your entire family's gone. Even if they weren't a great family, that's everyone, Yeah. And not only that, but apparently there's like a Fry genocide because there's only one living relative, which turns out to not be entirely true. He has Farnsworth has parents that are like in the near Death Star, but that's another story. But like this episode kind of addresses that, and it's very fitting that this is like the third or fourth to last episode. And in my opinion, that story, that idea of Fry wanting to spend more time with his family is a great one. That's a good one.
Yes.
The other story about the tones and like all right, I kind of it's a cool idea that Fry has to like listen to the surroundings to try to figure out what it was. Like, that's cool too. I hated the explanation of what this was. I thought it was just like this one of the stupidest Futurama endings. Like,
yeah.
Not the very ending. The very ending's sweet, but in terms of the story resolution, this was a cheat. This was a huge cheat.
It's a big setup, and then it's just like, oh, this is what this all amounted to?
Dumb comedy ending. Because it turns out that it's the key fob on a Nibblonian's ship, that the one that was supposed to pick Nibbler up in 1999. And it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense because, I mean, first of all, why would you... I know it's a joke. Okay, having it be a loud key fob is a good joke. Why would it, like, shake the Earth so much that it detaches Florida and a few other states from the U.S.? Like, in 1999, how did he safely get here and leave without there being any horrible, catastrophic things happening? And that's why it's a cheat, because it doesn't make sense. It's not a clever ending where it's like what you thought you knew was actually not true. It's a dumb ending that had to make up its own rules to make sense. Yeah. This thing destroyed other planets. And also, why was he not able to remember which planet he parked it on? Did he wait 1,000 years to come pick up the ship? Why? It's just so dumb. And I mean, it's also dumb that this thing survived on the rooftop of this building for 1,000 years. But you do kind of have to accept that with shows like this and Adventure Time, because otherwise you wouldn't have a lot of really cool narratives of certain things surviving for 1,000 years. Right. Like, that's just an inaccuracy that, like, you gotta live with. But yeah, like, what did you think about that?
It's probably my least favorite aspect of the episode. I mean, I get why it's there, and I do find some humor in it, but
yeah. There's ways to do the mislead where it still makes sense. That's ultimately it. If you can't, it's not a twist if you can't bother to make it make sense. That's just a random thing happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it also is it doesn't feel right with the tone of the rest of the episode, which, I mean, obviously it's still a comedy. There's still stupid jokes, but there's some real heart in places in this episode. And so to juxtapose that with dumb comedy ending, it feels out of place here. Whereas if the episode itself had been something like, oh goodness, I don't know, the one where the aliens use Fry's nose as an aphrodisiac, like that episode is just kind of that episode's just ridiculous in general, right? So had this been in like something like that, like, okay, whatever, maybe I'd buy it a little easier. But to kind of have these heartfelt moments, and then to also take time out of the episode to have this, and not just that it's like a dumb non-twist, but it's also that they take so long to explain it. It's like, if you have to explain your ending this much, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
But with that out of the way, this is a surprisingly heartfelt episode.
Very, yeah.
Has nothing to do with Game of Thrones at all.
Nope.
The title's a parody, but I don't know. Game of Thrones was big at that time. I think that's kind of dumb, to be honest with you. And maybe there's like a really clever double pun there that I'm not getting. But yeah. One of my favorite jokes from the episode is Farnsworth being like, back in my day, sound didn't travel through space. It's like,
yes,
that's true.
Yeah. My favorite joke was where Fry, when he's in the dream, he walks across the street into the Booby Tuesdays, and it's completely white, and he's like, why is it blank in here? And he's like, because you don't remember it because you've never been in here before.
No, but the real punchline, the real great line to that is I didn't expect them to be this nude. Like,
oh yeah,
that's the real kicker. Oh yeah, this place is a lot more nude than I expected, which is a really funny line.
Yeah.
And that's good storytelling too, because that's a joke there, but then it kind of really comes back to hit home for Fry at the end, where he can't go back to see his family because he left.
Yeah. It's so sad. Where they, like, basically, by that point, everybody is synced in, and they all, come into the dream, and they're all like, we got to go find it. We got to go find it. Everything's got to go according to plan. But it's just like, I just want to stay and talk to my mom.
Yeah, it's so sweet and so sad. Oh man. Yeah, and that's one of the things I really like about this episode is that this is basically the only time in the entire series where his family is treated, or his mother is treated more than just a joke or a punchline. Because that's every time you see her, it's that she's obsessed with sports and she's always watching the TV. Like I think they do a joke where Fry is born, like the day he's born, she's watching like some Giants game or something, like, and like that's funny. But like it was kind of nice to see them still have that joke, but humanize her, and make her be someone that Fry would really care to still see. It was cool also to tie in Yancey.
Yeah, Yancey.
Yeah, Yancey.
Both Yanceys.
Both Yanceys?
Yeah, because isn't Yancey the name of the dad and his brother?
That's true. Everyone in that family is a Yancey, except except for Fry's grandfather and Fry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another great joke is the father is like, he's like a conspiracy theorist, like anti like hippie person. So Nixon shows up. Both these episodes have a Nixon cameo. But Nixon shows up and he's like, "Oh my goodness, President Richard Nixon, I salute you." And then Nixon's like, "I need to take your son on a fantastical space journey." And then he's like, "Get out of my house, you commie." Like, that is so.
That's the funny thing. Like I'm pretty sure in the first episode when they're in the head museum, he falls back and he knocks over the Richard Nixon thing, and he's like, "Oh, Richard Nixon, our worst president."
Yep.
And then Fry's dad is like, "Richard Nixon, our best president."
Yep. Hey man, listen, you gotta commend Fry's dad, because he might be kind of bonkers, but like at least he's true to his beliefs. He doesn't. He's not willing to be swayed just because he likes the person. So good for him. He also, what is he calls Bender a toaster come to life or something, or a waffle maker or something. It's a funny episode. Like I wouldn't say it's hilariously funny, and I wouldn't say, well, I'd say parts of it are hilariously funny. I wouldn't say it's anything compared to the first episode comedy wise, but there's still like a decent number of episodes that really made me laugh. I like that the guys the breakdancer, which was from, I believe that was established in the episode with the clover, the Luck of the Friarish, he's called noticeably FAT. Oh man. And also Fry's mom yelling at the TV, kick the football, kick the dang football. And then Fry's like watching the game and she's like, I'm watching Charlie Brown. Oh Lord.
Also,
and then,
Captain Crunch casserole.
that's a real thing.
It is?
Yeah, you can do that with cereal. You can make casseroles out of it.
Wow.
You can make Doritos casserole. Make casserole
That
out of anything.
sounds disgustingly amazing.
I've never had it, but probably. Well, we didn't. Okay, what controversial joke? What did you think about the Family Guy joke?
I'm not sure if I caught it.
Oh, there's a part where Fry's dog Seymour, the beloved Seymour, turns into Brian Griffin.
Oh, where he
like,
talks.
Yeah, that's Brian Griffin.
Yeah.
He's got the martini, and he's Seth MacFarlane.
Yes, where he's sitting on the couch.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I wasn't sure if that was hinting towards Family Guy. No, that was pretty funny.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I thought it was funny too. Like, it's so random and just so like what. I also thought it was heartwarming that he took Seymour with him. Oh, poor Seymour. Well, okay, so the other thing,
pocket dog.
Yeah, the thing we gotta talk about too is that like Bender's Big Score. I love Bender's Big Score. I think it's the best of the Futurama movies, and I think that it would have been a very worthy like series finale. But it kind of, for better or worse, does kind of undercut like the sadness of the situation, because Fry went and lived for like 12 more years or something, 5 more years just at home. So realistically, his mother wouldn't be dreaming about him because he'd be there. But you could argue, I guess this takes place after the late Philip J. Fry. You could argue this is another timeline where Lars didn't exist. I don't know. It's wibbly, it's wibbly wobbly, but I don't really mind that they overwrote, or they kind of went with alternate continuity for this, or like an alternate timeline or whatever they did, because it still kind of made for a good story.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I took note that both episodes have a suicide joke. Obviously in the first one, it's with the booth that Bender and Fry end up in together, and then at the end when Fry's all sad, Bender's like, I can just throw him off the building. He's like, yeah, I can't stand to see him said like this. I'll just throw him off the building.
Which Nixon reference did you think was better? I enjoyed more in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay. We have some viewer comments. So from Zach25 Doodoo8, who says, Game of Thrones is my favorite episode of Futurama, and while the beginning was kind of weak, the first part dream section wasn't the greatest, though it was pretty funny, especially the line with the strip club. But that part where Fry was spending more time with his family again was really nice to see. It was also really funny to see everyone invades Fry's dream and interact with his family, especially the joke where Fry's dad chucked a grenade into Bender's chest because he thought Bender was a result of the Y2K. I like that they really start playing with the fact that Fry was dreaming during the pizza delivery, because it's clear the gang is already done keeping the dream as accurate as to the actual events as possible. I also love that the music was right at the end of the dream, and the music was just a Niblonian trying to find his lost car the whole time. The ending is easily my favorite moment of Futurama of all time, as we have Fry getting closer to one aspect of his life that he never knew he needed, and the fact that Fry's mom had a picture of him on her nightstand, and that she dreamed about him a lot after Fry vanished. It was such a cute but sad note to end on. Yeah, that is interesting. I like the happy medium that they kind of approached it, where it's not like they like sent Fry back into the past to like, just like be there or whatever, but they still gave him something that meant something. It wasn't just like, here's a simulated version of your mother. I believe it, yeah, I believe in the future that they have, that they would be able to like go and visit other people's dreams in the past or something. Like that feels like a weird technology that Farnsworth would come up with or something, And we know the Niblonians can time travel to an extent, so and And yeah, but it is bittersweet because it's like he can interact with her, but he can't. And then I do love that he's like, I got something to tell you, and then he just hugs her. Like that's good writing, right? That meant that's so much more powerful than anything he would have to say in that situation. And yeah,
I mean, you just can't explain that stuff. And I also do want to point out how well Game of Thrones does a job of. I feel like it's almost in some ways shot for shot recreating some of the events of the pilot.
right. And what's interesting is that this is in HD widescreen. So I don't know. I don't necessarily know if they actually shot for shot did it or whatever, but they they went through it and it's very faithfully recreated. I thought it was kind of I was gonna say it's kind of weird that Nibbler is there, but there isn't a second Nibbler. But I guess it makes sense because Fry's dream wouldn't have known. Well, but Fry does know that Nibbler was there, but I don't know. Never mind. Time travel.
Yeah.
I almost thought they were going for an Inception thing when the ground started quaking. Inside the dream, but they don't. I mean, that could have been an interesting story as well. But let's see what else. I don't know, but I guess I really just wish that they had gone with a better explanation at the end, because I don't mind like the idea of Fry having to go and find this music. Like it's cool. That is kind of cool that like he listens to these random jingles on the street and then everyone's like, is that the song? Is that the song?
Yeah.
No.
The episode plays heavy on different sounds.
Mm-hmm. And it is kind of like this like really weird, like, let's walk through, like, it's like Fry's walking through the last day of his old life. Like it is kind of something really interesting about that.
Yeah.
And then also it's like it is really wonderfully surreal to see the Futurama cast interacting with Fry's family, and like how I love how they do it too with like dream logic, where it's like you don't think that's weird that Leela's here, and she's like no, and he's like, you know Leela, and she's like nope. It's just like, yep, that's dream. That's dream logic, you know? It's like, it's not odd, but, you know, as soon as you question it, then sure, yeah, no.
Right. And that's the thing, like, Fry has this attachment and he feels like he needs to talk to his mom, but like everyone that's there to kind of complete the mission keeps trying to tell him that like, no, it's not your mom, it's just like a memory. It's all artificial.
Yeah. There's I mean that's the real kind of like interplay here, is that it is Fry isn't even being like particularly selfish, or like he just kind of he gets caught in the moment, and then they not only drag him out of it, but they forcibly tell him like, dude, it's not real, like you can't.
Right.
And that's it's real. No, I mean this in terms of the Comedy Central era, this is up there. Like Philip J. Fry is just always number one. There's no disputing that. Unless you want to, Monsters.
No, I like that episode a lot.
Okay. But this one is up there as well. And it is a very beloved episode, and it is one of the more sweet episodes. I don't want to say it's the sweetest episode, because there's definitely other ones, and there's definitely other endings that are pretty sweet, but I don't know. They really did kind of touch on a very nice mother-son relationship here that was pretty much original for this. I really don't think she's ever been portrayed as anything more than just kind of like a joke in all of her cameo appearances or whatever. So which one would you prefer, Monsters? Which one do you think is better?
This is tough.
Want me to go first?
Sure. Yeah.
Space Pilot. I do 100% think that Game of Thrones has more of an emotional core, and it definitely did kind of make me feel something. But I just Space Pilot has the whole picture. It has the story, the comedy, the lore, the setup, the everything you could really want from a Futurama episode outside of Zoidberg and Hermes and Amy. It's got all these inside jokes and references and foreshadowing and alien languages and all this sort of setup, and it's fantastic. But for what it's worth, I do really think Game of Thrones is a great episode. But I do also think that it's dragged very harshly down by that stupid plot point.
Okay. I'm gonna have to go with Game of Tones.
Ooh.
I know, controversial. Um, like I think you're right in saying that Space Pilot's probably the less flawed episode and the one that more accurately depicts the best of Futurama. But with Game of Tones, it's such an emotional roller coaster, and it tugs at my heartstrings so much that I've brought up many times that it's usually not common for any sort of entertainment media to be able to evoke emotion out of me, but this episode was able to achieve that, and with that I commend it, and I still love Space Pilot. I love Space Pilot, and although I will say that I do think that there's a lot better episodes from the Fox era. But no, I'd say I liked Game of Tones more.
Okay, that's completely fair. I mean, how I was I didn't pick it, but I did kind of feel that like special, I don't know, like heartwarming motherly connection thing from that Simpsons episode we talked about a few weeks ago. So I completely understand. And I do think that, yeah, like it's interesting because, yeah, what Game of Thrones does best is very different from Space Pilot. Like, Space Pilot does kind of have a moment where Fry kind of realizes the weight of the situation, but other than that, there's not really anything particularly like heartwarming or anything about that episode. It's solid, but it's not a tearjerker. And this one, I feel like, does accurately do a good job of doing drama in a Futurama. Oh goodness. I was not intending that, but it is good future drama. So, are you ready for the trivia?
Yes? Question mark?
I thought you were a Futurama expert over here, but apparently I know more about the show than you. We got something pretty simple here. 5 prompts, and I'm just gonna name an episode title, and you have to tell me whether it was from the Fox era or the Comedy Central era. I'm gonna leave out the movies, so those won't be asked. But I'm gonna ask those. You have 1 lifeline, monsters. I'm gonna be kind this time. Your one lifeline is, if you use this lifeline, I will read to you the synopsis of the episode.
All right.
So maybe you could remember it. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So your first prompt is: Bender should not be allowed on TV.
I'm gonna say the Fox Run.
You are correct. That is it's from season 4. It is one of the later episodes. It's one of the funnier titles. That's when he joins All My Circuits.
Oh, right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next episode. The Root of All Evil.
How is root spelled?
Route.
Oh,
It's a pun.
Yes.
You could also say the route of all evil, I guess.
That is true. I'm going to use my lifeline on this one.
Okay. Yeah, this is not one of the more memorable episodes, I will say. In the episode, Dwight and Cubert form their own delivery company in an attempt to impress their fathers.
I'll say Fox Run.
You are correct. Very good. Yeah, it's a Cubert episode, so
yeah.
I mean, all right, you're at 2 for 2, man.
Don't jinx me.
Okay. Where the Bugalo Roam.
Oh, this is the Mars episode, I think. Right? With
I cannot say.
With Amy's parents.
Mm.
I'm trying to remember if this was in widescreen or not.
Is that your
That's my determining factor.
Okay.
I think it is, so I'm gonna say Comedy Central.
Incorrect. It is when you're all right. It is a Mars episode with Amy's parents. It's when they first meet Kif. It's 2 episodes before the Root of All Evil in season 3.
Ah.
Yep. All right.
I knew the episode, but anyway.
Okay. Obsoletely famous. So
I'm
sorry. I'm sorry. Wait. So I'm sorry. I said the word wrong. Obsoletely Fabulous.
I'll say Comedy Central.
Incorrect. It is
Really?
from the end of season 4, the last Fox season, and I don't even remember what it's about. Let's see. At a robot expo, Monster and the Robot Company introduces a new robot, 1X. Farnsworth buys one to help around the office, and Bender feels obsolete about it. Oh, this is where he's getting all the upgrades. Or wait a minute. This isn't the one where he needs... No. That's a Comedy Central one where he overclocks himself. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember this episode. I gotta watch this episode. Huh.
You did jinx me.
I did. Yep. All right. Am I crazy enough to make all of them be from the Fox era?
Let's find out.
Okay. You're 2 for 4. Bender gets made.
Bender gets made. And I already used my lifeline.
Yep. I will give you a clue in that it's not an episode that I remembered what it was from the title. I recall this episode, but not from the title.
All right. That could mean many things.
I know, it doesn't actually help you. I just
I'm going to say I'm just going to bet on it. Comedy Central.
Nope. 2 for 5.
I should have known better.
This is the one where Bender becomes a chef. Wow, I'm misreading.
I was wrong.
No. You're still wrong. But I was wrong about that. No, this is the one where Bender becomes a mafia person. It starts off with Elzar, where he shoots Leela in the face with the spice weasel. But
with the robot gangsters.
Yeah. This is the one where Bender robs the Planet Express ship while Fry and Leela are blindfolded, and so they don't know it's him the whole time, and he has to stop the Dombot from like murdering them while trying to still rob them. Like it's a good episode, but yep, it would have been probably easier to pick Comedy Central errors. I feel like I would have confused you more with that, but I still got you pretty good for 2 for 5 with a lifeline.
It was hopeful at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that the episode titles are clever, but they're not always very indicative of, like, Bender gets made could mean anything.
Right.
Like if that was the episode where he got made as a famous chef, that would make sense. Like if it was an episode where like the episode where it shows that Hermes was the one that manufactured him, like literally Bender gets made, that could have been it too. Like it could have been
Then when you hear something like Game of Tones, like just using context clues, you can figure out that's from the Comedy Central era.
Yeah, because it's a much worse title.
Right.
Oh man. One day we'll pick a Comedy Central era episode that is not great. Maybe I still say we should do the 2 election episodes.
Yeah, I'm down.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us on this podcast once again. Have a good New Year, guys, and we will see you in 2019. Unless the Hypnotoad takes over.
Yep.
All right. PIEGUYRULZ out.
Catch you guys next time.